It's Global MX-5 Cup. And Jake Query, what do we do for an encore? You couldn't have gotten off to a much more exciting, much more compelling start than we saw at the Circuit of the Americas yesterday.
The goal is going to be the same, Mark, and that is for all of these drivers in these identically prepared Mazda MX-5 Global Cup machines to try to work their way to the front. The scenery is going to be a little bit different because yesterday there was the threat of a little bit of moisture, but it never came to fruition. As a matter of fact, it was muggy, but you could see some of the sun splashing off the windshields as they worked their way around this 3.4-mile, 20-turn course in Austin, Texas. Mark, not the case here today. It was Brian Ortiz that took the checkered flag yesterday with a very late pass. As a matter of fact, breathtaking, getting past the rookie Celine Roland, who finished in third position. The pole sitter from yesterday, John Dean II, rounding out the podium, or rather being in the middle of it, finishing in second. But a little bit different conditions for everybody today. And as these drivers work their way around, Mark, they're going to have to do so with a little bit more of an effort to try to find grip, it would seem, in those BF Goodrich tires.
Peak there, the 84 of Todd Lamb. You see Robert Stout now to the bottom right-hand corner as they've left the paddock now. Speaking of Brian Ortiz, as we mentioned, the third member of our crew is Ryan Marine, and Ryan caught up with the winner in victory lane yesterday.
A very happy Brian Ortiz indeed. You finished last season on your roof. You start this season with the win here at Circuit of the Americas. Can you take us through the pass you made for the lead there on that final lap following the restart?
Well, first of all, I want to say hi to everybody in Puerto Rico. They're watching this race. They've been very supportive. They've been through a lot since the hurricane, so I want to say hi to all of you. And what can I say? Excellent race. I did a couple of mistakes with third. I'm having issue with third. But I had a great car, great team, great sponsor, Bella Racing, Bella Group. Carlos, thank you for believing in me. This is definitely a great opportunity, and I'm very, very happy for sure.
The hot shot rookie, Celine Roland, you heard that he was involved very prominently in that finish. We caught up with him earlier today and asked him to take us a lap around the Circuit of the Americas.
It's my first time here, so, still getting used to the kinks and everything, but going down the front straightaway, long front straightaway, and you could just go straight up the hill. There's a little white line there, brake hard, and you're going uphill, so that kind of takes, you can brake later than you expect. So going down turn 1, 5th, going down to 4th, 3rd, if you're in traffic, maybe throw in the second. I got in trouble a couple times in the race. Put it on the third, ideally if you're by yourself. Use all that track out of turn 1, very, very tight turn. Down to turn 2, flat, down the hill. Then you're setting up for the S's, turn 3, turn 4, turn 5. Take turn 3 flat, brake straight for turn 4. Just kind of take the S's, little brake for turn 5. Tap on in 6, use a little double apex, go a little wide, cut back in, set up for turn 7. Let off, kind of feather it for turn 7, then medium to hard brake for turn 8, keep it tight going up the hill, then try to get flat as fast as you can for turn 9, turn 10 to flat kink, then hard braking for turn 11, down to 2nd, that's the hairpin, one of the slowest turns on the track, and you got to set up for that long back straightaway. Back straightaway up to 5th, then we get down all the way down to turn 12. Turn 12 is not as tight as you think. You kind of want to carry as much speed as you can. Exit's not the biggest goal for there. You have a very short shoot there. Down to 3rd, ideally. Sometimes 2nd if you're in traffic. Then down to 13. Basically keep it in 3rd through that whole short shoot. 13 tight. Turn 14 is a little kink. Then you get down to the tricky turn 15, which I think is the slowest turn on the track. Tight. Down to 2nd. You're gonna slide on exit. Then you go down to the carousel. Flat carousel. It's a 4 apex. It kind of looks cool to watch from there. Then you set up for turn 19. Turn 19 is one of the trickiest turns. Definitely been on iRacing, and I never knew how to take it. Brake early, turn early. Use a lot of curves and use all that exit. Then you're down to turn 20, last turn, down to 3rd. Just try to keep it straight. Get the best exit you can for that front straightaway.
Celine Roland taking us on a lap around the Circuit of the Americas. Bad news for him in 6 sideways racing. He was scheduled to roll off in row number 2. That car will move to the rear of the grid because of the crew working on the car after the pre-grid had closed. Well, again, what a difference a day makes at the race course. Let's get an update on the conditions on this day from Ryan Marine.
Thanks, Mark. Yes, definitely different conditions today. Just 70 degrees, overcast, in a wet racetrack. They've declared this a wet start. All the cars starting on the BF Goodrich wet tires, and for good reason. There's a good deal of moisture out on the circuit at the moment. We had a lot of mist throughout the morning, quite a bit of fog. Most of it's burned off. We expect conditions to get better as the race goes along, but you never know, and it could really throw some wrenches into the strategy for some of these teams.
Jake Query, no question, an ultra-competitive series, and these guys quite simply are racing for their racing futures. A lot on the line with the program in place by Mazda to allow these drivers to move up and further their careers.
We saw it, of course, a year ago with Patrick Gallagher. We talked about it yesterday, taking that scholarship money, working into the sports car series, and you talked about that rookie, Celine Roland, who is now going to have to start at the back of the field, but he is using money from Mazda just to get the opportunity here in the Mazda MX-5 Cup. Great opportunity to learn yet another form of racing. Many of these drivers, I'm sure, have raced on wet before, but that brings in a new strategy, Mark. How long do you go on those wet tires? Once the track starts to dry out and come back a little bit, how comfortable are you going out there, going with a set of slick tires and then just trying to figure out whether or not you can maneuver around, maybe come in early, take advantage of that. All that comes into play, so it becomes pretty important here to watch, and it will be fun to watch over the course of the next 45 minutes.
The front row consists of Brian Ortiz and John Dean II. Roland, as we mentioned, had to move to the rear of the field. That moves Stout and Bickers. Nathaniel Sparks, always a contender. Nico Rieger, Luke Oxner, we saw him flex some muscle from time to time last year in the 77. Herman Palermo is in the 9 machine, and Kyle Kimball completes the top 10 in terms of the starting grid. We'll give you rundowns of the top 10 and the full field periodically throughout the course of the show this morning. Pace car is off. Pretty good formation as they come off to the final turn, and they already starting to fan out. Well, no, the pace car's going to remain out, Jake. We're not going green just yet, I guess.
No, they did take the green flag,
okay,
as a matter of fact, and that's Ortiz that was the one. It looked like everybody else was anticipating what you did, Mark, but Ortiz gets that good jump. As a matter of fact, this is a much better start for the leader than we saw yesterday. But again, you go wide there. You see how wide they take it there in turn number 1, but Ortiz is out in front. It looks like Ortiz, Mark, has his hazards on, and I think that's why we thought that was the safety car.
Nathaniel Sparks is one of those that is on the move early. He grabbed a couple of spots. We see Joey Bickers also picking up a couple of spots. The 34 of Bickers is trying to tuck in and grab the spot from John Dean II. The 77, Luke Oxner, he's also a mover and a shaker early. He grabbed a couple of positions on the start.
Really good start for Nico Rieger, who yesterday was incredibly good in the first 15 or so minutes, about the first third of the race. You see he pulls that 01 machine into the second position right now, and he is going to give Ortiz everything that he wants. Ortiz has Nico Rieger right there, and you can see Rieger setting him up, going to try to take a look to the outside, then tuck back inside, but Ortiz, a pretty good idea of what he wants to do to try to hold him off. A little bit good, better action there. Luke Oxner moves into the third spot as he works his way around.
And he is working on the 77 of Luke Oxner, and now those front 4 are going to try to tuck in behind one another and check out a little bit on the rest of the field. As you see, the cars behind them having to deal with some spray for sure. They stay single file formation. They're pretty tightly bunched as Brian Ortiz continues to lead the way. Pretty good battle back of the pack. Todd Lamb trying to hold off several pursuers.
Boy, and I'll tell you what, they're going to make this track as wide as they possibly can. You saw going down, that was Oxner that went all the way down to the bottom of the racetrack, but they work their way now, starting to go single file. Now, there are a couple of passing opportunities, especially in turn number 1, where things get wide, and just when you think that somebody down to the bottom has an advantage, there's a wide sweeping curbing out to the right that allows for those drivers that want to try to see what they can do to the outside. As a matter of fact, you're watching Robert Stout and that 28 machine do exactly that, picking up a spot on track. Yesterday, it was this form of the race, this part of the race, where Nico Rieger was so good. Nathaniel Sparks right now might like his car a lot. You saw him in that 8 machine. Robert Stout as well. But I think right now, Mark, the real key is just figuring out how much grip you have on those wets and how much that track is going to dry out before you decide whether or not to put yourself in position and when you put yourself in position towards the later stint of the race.
Yeah, Nathaniel Sparks sees the cars fan out behind him. He's trying to keep pace with that lead pack. You see Robert Stout is the last car in that train. So separation among the top 5. That's Ortiz, Reger, Oxner, Bickers, and Stout. Then there's a bit of separation back to John Dean II, Todd Lamb, Kyle Kimball, Brian Henderson, and Herman Palermo.
Celine Roland has worked his way up into the 11th position. Keith Jensen running 12th, then Zach Lee running in the 13th spot. So you see right now everything's starting to settle down just a little bit. We saw this yesterday, Mark, in the fact that it seemed as though drivers were at the outset of the race. You really get kind of on that switch a little bit, and then things kind of calm down. You start to find the line. And that looks like what we're seeing right now.
Oxner and Bickers is a pretty good battle right now. That's the battle for third as Ortiz continues to gain some separation from Nico Reger. Reger's trying to keep pace. There's a good look at a car back of the pack. That's Koskinen, we should say. That's Matt Koskinen, the 71 machine. He is currently in the 21st position. Now, Jake, more separation among the top 5, and those guys are really starting to pull away from that sixth place running car of Sparks, who's leading Lamb and Kimball, Henderson, and others.
You see there in that 87 machine. Good look at it. That's that rookie from yesterday, Celine Roland, who was so good and really had it in the late stages. Looked like he was going to be able to get the win, but then Ortiz and as well Dean II able to get around him on the final turn of the race. That fell Celine Roland down to the 3rd position, and it looked like that rookie was going to get a win in his debut. Up front, pass for the lead, that is Nico Reger, back in position where we saw him in the first 15 minutes yesterday, out in front of the field. Ortiz is going to keep his car in the middle of the racetrack. That allows Ortiz, as Reger got hung out just a little bit, Ortiz able to get by, Luke Oxner able to as well. Nico Reger all of a sudden goes from the point, running in the first spot, down now, possibly to falling to the 3rd position if Oxner, as he does, can complete that pass.
Ortiz racing experience includes the Cody Challenge, the Wheel It All-American Series, the NASCAR K&N Series. He's also done some Touring Series races in Puerto Rico. He loves the competition. He says best racing moment finishing on the podium at Daytona and that K&N Pro Series. When he's not at the racetrack, you'll probably find him boating somewhere.
And again, Ortiz had the lead, then he saw it go away. It did not last for long, puts himself right back up into position. Battle right there that we're watching, that's a good one. It's the battle for 4th. Joey Bickers in that 34 machine, but he's got his mirrors full right now. That's Robert Stout working hard on it.
That's a pretty good battle. They're nose to tail. A little bit of separation among the front 3. Ortiz, Oxner, and Reger starting to pull away a little bit. You don't question as to if Robert Stout can make the pass on Joey Bickers. It might be a question of when. And, Jake, there's not much separation there. He's tucked right in behind him as they crest the hill.
That's the battle for 4th again. We watch it right now. Really good race yesterday for Bickers as well, who's trying to hold Stout off at this particular moment. Bickers yesterday had, in that 5, 6, 7 range, a lot of activity around him. There were so many passes on track yesterday, Mark, in terms of not just the front. I know sometimes when we watch races, you focus on the leaders, but you see right now, like in this battle for 4th, there are so many different opportunities for these drivers to feel the aerodynamics, to feel the drafting of these cars. Identically prepared machines, of course, but at all times, no matter where you are on the grid, seemingly there is someone around you. But for those first 5, that someone around them is pretty much just that 5. They've checked out just a bit. It's Ortiz, Luke Oxner running 2nd, then Nico Reger, Joey Bickers, and Robert Stout.
Just damp enough to upset the grip in the rear of those race cars, Jake, and what control these drivers have as they snake their way through the S's. We see a pass for position there as Roland continues to pick off drivers at will. Jake, he's already up to 2nd, and again, in case you missed it in the pre-race, he had to move to the rear of the field because of some issues, the crew working on the car in an unapproved area.
That was Todd Lamb, his latest victim, so now all of a sudden Roland works his way in, trying to get into that group with the front 5 itself. Ortiz, Oxner, and Reger. Good look at him right there as Ortiz goes a little bit to the middle of the racetrack. Sometimes You might want to try to go wide and work your way to the outside, but I think everybody's going to hold off on that just a little bit before maybe they feel a little bit more confidence when this track dries out.
Sparks and Kimball, those guys involved in a pretty good battle, and now all of a sudden the thing's starting to heat up there as the number 8 machine of Sparks is under attack from several cars behind him. Looks like he's going to lose a position to the S's.
There's a good glance again at Roland, who is working his way. Celine Roland currently running in the 7th position, but he actually now will be in the 6th position next time they come by because he had worked his way around Todd Lamb. Really good run for Roland, who no doubt was disappointed by the fact that he had to start further back in the pack because of working on the cars too late this morning before they went out and took to the green flag. Boy, you see people getting awfully loose there. That's, you know, Mark, you get that middle groove, that middle line, that track area dries out, but there still is some water that extends if you get too far to the outside. We call it marbles when it's collected rubber, but in this case, it's actually just the moisture itself that's going to cause you to lose grip if you get a little bit too confident on the outside.
Honestly, Roland's presence indicates and reaffirms the commitment that Mazda has to this series, Jake. He's a Mazda Road to 24 scholarship winner. He was behind the wheel during testing to start this season and did so because of a $100,000 scholarship from Mazda for winning the Global Mazda MX-5 Cup Shootout. That was held in November of last year. And 6 sideways put him in a race car, and he's making the most of that $100,000 opportunity.
No question about it. And so far, while one weekend does not a season make, he is showing that their confidence in him is more than justified. Yesterday, a very solid run. This, of course, a doubleheader weekend. It is race number 2 of 2 races that we will see here at the Circuit of the Americas. It was Brian Ortiz taking race 1 yesterday. This just one of 6 doubleheaders that takes place over the course of the season.
I mean, Ortiz is P1, but Jake, he literally doesn't have time to breathe. I mean, you can't race with your mirrors, but gosh, he's got to know that he's got 5 cars stacked up behind him.
And he's got him single file behind him right now. What Ortiz has to wonder, as somebody who made a late run yesterday when Nico Rager and then later in the race, John Dean the second led for a while, Roland late in the race, and then Ortiz was able to make his move. He's got to be thinking to himself, are others setting me up the way I set up and played it so perfectly yesterday? Front 5 really checked out. That 6th place machine, as you see, trying to get back up there into view. That's the machine of Todd Lamb. And Roland now, boy, he continues to work his way through. Let's put him now. That would put him in the 5th position. He gets a little bit loose. That's that car number 87. He's trying to work really hard right now on Joey Bickers.
The 28 machine of Robert Stout swings wide and is going to give up the position. And that 34 of Joey Bickers is next. And they are really laying on one another as the car washes out a little bit on Roland. But he's able to gather it back in. So give him another position now, and it's just a matter of time before he starts laying on Joey Bickers a little bit, especially to the bottom of the racetrack. A lot of grip in that car right now, considering the wet conditions, but he can't be too focused on Bickers because Robert Stout's right there all over him.
Mark, I think in this track right now, what you see over the course of these 20 turns, one groove in the middle where things have a little bit of grip, but you get too far outside as you see those rooster tails coming up just a little bit. There is still plenty of moisture here that makes things very, very interesting. And right now, that is Roland. Boy, what a battle we're watching right now. That's Celine Roland as he's trying to work in on that 34 machine of Joey Bickers. That's the battle for 4th.
That's where they say, I think this is one of those points like on a dirt track, Jake. They would say they have the elbows out here. That's and they are really flinging it around. Meanwhile, the front 2, Ortiz and Oxner, they've set up nose to tail. And while those 5 cars behind them slug it out, those 2 are starting to get a little bit of distance now.
Oxner, again, is going to try to take a peek to the outside, but he's not going to be able to clear that move. You see just behind him a pair of cars, if that makes sense, if you will. That is the 3rd place running machine that you see just in front of the 34 Joey Bickers. That's Oxner now, who has dropped to 3rd. Nico Rager has worked his way to 2nd.
A big save by Robert Stout. Contact between he and Celine Roland, and he almost lost the race car. It almost got sideways on him, and I don't know how they gathered it back in, Jake, but he was able to do it.
Boy, watch that rear end there you see on Roland when he worked his way around. You could see him just kind of fighting the wheel there inside of that machine as it has just gotten, as we talked about, slick out there, but we expect the conditions to dry. But Ryan Marine, let's be honest, when it comes to putting together good rubber, BF Goodrich has done that not only yesterday we saw, but today, a little bit different compound in these wet conditions.
Yeah, the wet tires today, Jake, you're right, and we've seen them very much on display. Pete Calhoun from BF Goodrich joining me now. What a great display of tire technology. Yesterday the dries, today the wets. You've really been able to show exactly what BF Goodrich brings to the table.
Yeah, absolutely. In our partnership with Mazda and the development of the Global MX-5 Cup car over the past 2+ seasons, you obviously look at a solution for both the dry and the wet. And our wet tire, the couple times we've had to use it, has really put on an excellent display of performance.
Why does MX-5 Cup make sense for BF Goodrich?
Well, Mazda and BF Goodrich, we've really been partners in different programs since the early 1970s when both of us were coming to market with some unique solutions. Then with the rotary engine, us with the radial tire in the American market. And we share a lot of similarities with our customer demographics. It's just been a great partnership for a number of years.
And it's a perfect place to display it, too. The racing is always so close, always so entertaining, and your tires are front and center.
Yeah, obviously, this weekend being the first event of the 2018 season, 32 cars have taken a starting grid the last 2 days. Been really exciting race yesterday with the top 10 running all bunched up for all 45 minutes. Today, they've been really clean here through the first 4 laps also.
We'll let you enjoy the rest of the race. Thanks so much.
Thank you very much. Have a great day.
About 30 minutes remaining in this 45-minute race, and Brian Ortiz, Nico Reger, Luke Oxner, Joey Bickers, they complete the top 4.
Boy, but Joey Bickers just had a problem there, and all of a sudden that 34 machine, he goes off, loses a little bit of grip, and as a result of that, he's going to lose all kinds of track space. And guess what? Don't look now, but look who that puts in the 3rd position. That red machine right there, you take a look at it, that is Celine Roland, as he has a trio of cars behind him. Robert Stout going to work to his outside, but that rookie has worked his way up into the 3rd spot.
Boy, Oxner is using a lot of the racetrack trying to keep pace with this bunch. Todd Lamb in that 84 is trying to keep pace with that threesome as well. As they kind of set up nose to tail, they start to pull away from him just a little bit. Now they bunch back up again. And, Jake, that's a really cool shot to the S's of those cars running nose to tail.
Great look at that 6 sideways machine. And, boy, he gets a little bit sideways. Talking about that number 87 machine, Celine Roland. He is running again in the 3rd position. Brian Ortiz, your leader. Top 10 for you. Then Nico Reger, followed by Roland. It's Luke Oxner running in 4th. 5th to Robert Stout. 6th is Todd Lamb. 7th position to Brian Henderson. Kyle Kimball holding in 8th. Yesterday's pole sitter, John Dean II, running in 9th. Joey Bickers now in 10th.
Of course, after Cade's installation and paint, the car's assembled with some 250 race-specific parts. The car, by the way, completely disassembled. The tub is cleaned of seam sealer and sound deadening material. And FIA, SCCA, and NASA-approved roll cage is welded into the car. It has a NASCAR-style door bars on both sides. And a protection, safety, all the hallmark. And Jake, basically these are 2016 plus Mazda MX-5s. And it's known as the ND or 4th generation Miata. They're all built from white club trim level new cars. And it's all put together by the good folks at Long Road Racing in Statesville, North Carolina, north of Charlotte. And they've been given a lot of thumbs up for the product that they produce for these drivers, these teams.
And again, the great thing, you can go in and you can actually buy one yourself if you'd like. These are cars that are available, of course, obviously, probably a little bit different horsepower. But in terms of the actual body itself, to drive to work every day if you wanted to, you could do exactly that. Boy, Roland, again, getting very, very loose. As a matter of fact, had a little bit of a hiccup there that allowed for Herman Palermo to get past him. Palermo is working, I believe, a lap down. That's that 28 machine of Robert Stout that is right there with him. This is a very busy portion of the track in terms of the drivers trying to make up track position. Brian Ortiz, the leader, then Nico Reger, and then that 3rd place machine that you see. That's a good battle right there. That's the battle for 3rd. Celine Roland, he has right behind him Robert Stout, who has gotten now around Luke Oxner.
I think the whole approach is to promote an element of joy in racing and the driver and the car being one. And Jake, when you're talking about cars that are identically prepared, I think it does what it's intended to do. It puts it in the hands of the driver, and I think that explains such close quarters racing. But I think it also an element of this is what we just talked about. It's an opportunity for people to feel as though that what they're going to go roll off the showroom floor is pretty close to what they're watching race here at COTA today.
Oxner and Lamb, you just saw working their way around Herman Palermo. That puts him a lap down now, all the way running back through 7 machines. Totally agree, Mark. And the other thing that's interesting is when you're racing against a driver who has the exact same chassis, the exact same machine as you, one of the things I think here in the Mazda MX-5 Cup Series that we see is how just important aerodynamics seemingly would be in learning, Mark, the draft. Because you know when you come alongside a car, that driver essentially is working with the exact same everything as you. And so therefore, the engineering, if you will, the geometry of figuring out the line and figuring out how to work the clean air versus dirty air, all things that are very critically important, and I think something that through this series you probably learn and are able to experiment with as much as any other form of motorsports.
5th place running, Luke Oxner, car 77. Resides in Greeley, Colorado. He's a native of Arkansas. Porsche Club of America, a spec Boxster, and 996 GT3 Cup. That's some of his experience. His favorite part of MX-5 Cup, Jake, he likes the close competition. He's been involved in plenty of that this weekend. He likes the Mazda involvement, and he likes the fact that it's a spec car. One of his best moments setting the track record and sweeping the weekend in his spec Boxster at Laguna Seca, a very historic racetrack. And so it would only stand to reason that Mazda Raceway at Laguna Seca, the corkscrew, is one of his favorite tracks and favorite portions of the racetrack. When he's not racing, you'll find him running, mountain biking, and golfing. And throughout the course of this race, we want to give you an opportunity to get to know some of these drivers a little better that we'll be covering all throughout the course of the season. Let's head back to Ryan Marie.
Thank you, Mark. Standing by with one of the Masters class competitors, Zach Lee. Unfortunately, we're speaking to you a little bit too soon. What has you out of the race?
Transmission. The 5th gear went, and then I was continuing on, going down the straightaway 4th, and then the 4th gear went. So it's terminal.
Sorry to hear that. Certainly hope you can bounce back for the next one.
Thanks. Appreciate it.
Very matter of fact, one of those racing deals.
That's right. Transmission goes, there's not a lot you can do, right?
No, that's right. How about the advantage that Ortiz has opened up here as they cross timing and scoring? We see the lead at 1.3 seconds. Rieger is trying to keep pace, but Jake, after we saw them running nose to tail for a while, we now get the impression that the separation is about the same. And I mean, I'm not suggesting that they're settling into a race pace because I don't think those 3 behind him have any interest in Ortiz stretching that lead out much further.
No, but Ortiz yesterday, like I mentioned, and I'll probably mention 5 more times, if there's one driver that knows that it goes to the final turn, it's Ortiz, because yesterday that was when he was able to make the move and get the win. And you heard Ryan Marine mention it off the top of the show from his interview yesterday. What a journey it's been for Brian Ortiz. Back at Laguna Seca, at the end of the year last year to end the season. A visually terrifying accident that fortunately he was able to get out and walk away from, but the car was on the hood. He got out of it. He had all kinds of friends and family in Puerto Rico that were watching him and wanting to see what would happen. Everything that's happened in Puerto Rico that we know about since the storms down there. As you take a good look at Brian Henderson, by the way, that 97 machine running in the 10th position. But it's such a journey for Ortiz, and to be able to start off this year, Mark, and go, as Ryan had talked about, from going on his roof and ending up in victory lane in race number 1, such a shot in the arm for Brian Ortiz for this season.
Give me an idea what the schedule looks like for the remainder of this season. Rounds 3 and 4 at Barber Motorsports Park, April 21st and 22nd. The weekend of June 22nd, rounds 5 and 6 will be at Road America in Elkhart Lake. Then it's on to Mid-Ohio for rounds 7 and 8, the weekend of July the 27th. Then rounds 9 and 10 will be at Portland over Labor Day weekend. And then rounds 11 and 12, they'll cap off the season at the Monticello Motor Club. They'll run the full course there. Jake, it's 90 minutes from New York City, 4.1 miles in length. They do car storage, karting, even do fine dining and driving schools there. They have a BMW MZ Racing School. And one of the drivers who have run test sessions there it said, I would love to drive there until there's no more fuel left on Earth. That's how much they enjoyed that course. It's it's 90 minutes from New York City, as we said. It's the Monticello Motor Club full course.
Looks like we've had a change for the second position. That is Celine Roland. Again, the 2018 Mazda Cup Racer Shootout winner, who is running now for Six Sideways Racing. And that Soul Red car, he now is the only thing between himself and the leader, Brian Ortiz, is about 6 or 7 car lengths. Then just behind him, all of a sudden, Nico Rager, who, again, yesterday was so active. He was up there running in the second position just a lap ago. He's got Robert Stout all over him. That's the battle for third.
22 minutes remaining. Ortiz, Roland, Rager, Stout, and Lamb the top 5. Oxnard, John Dean the second. Kyle Kimball, Joey Bickers, and Brian Henderson complete the top 10.
Really good look at them as they work their way around this track. It is starting to dry. I thought, Mark, there was the possibility that they would get back to a completely dry surface over the course of this race. But in these 45 minutes, I don't think that's going to be the case. I think they're going to stay on those wets throughout. And as a matter of fact, you see just a little bit of sliding going on there. That's Nico Rager. Really good look at him there. And that 0-1 machine. This is a veteran within this series. We have seen him in some fantastic battles over the course of the last season or so. Down in Birmingham, for example, Road America. There you see Roland. That's in second. Then there's Nico Rager. Rager running in the third position. The last of that quartet up front is Robert Stout. Front 4 has really checked out now. The lead for the leader, Brian Ortiz, is 1.6 seconds right now, so a pretty sizable gap.
Jake, we mentioned Brian Henderson completing the top 10. Just behind him in 11th is the 13 machine of Robert Noker. And if Noker's car was one number higher, it would match his age. A 14-year-old Robert Noker is competing today. First time he climbed into a race car was in a kart at the age of 5. And at 14 years old, he's made his debut in the battery tender Global Mazda MX-5 Cup. He moved to the Skip Barber Racing Series a couple of years ago, raced in Spec Miata with NASA, and he's raced a lot. His dad says he's put about 10,000 racing miles on his Miata over 16 weekends and 32 races, and he had 4 wins.
So what you're telling me is he knows how to park it in victory lane. He just doesn't know how to parallel park it in victory lane.
Well,
right?
they got to be careful.
Had those lessons yet.
They got to be careful what they spray in victory lane too, with him being just 14 years old.
Get that Welch's sparkling grape soda.
There's a good look at him in that black and white machine. Just 14 years old, and he is mixing it up plenty. As he is currently holding on to that 11th position. That's a great story there. Good for you, kid. It's just amazing, Jake. You and I, of course, have plenty of experience in covering stick and ball sports, and you know, gosh, how kids are able to compete at a higher level at an earlier age. And I think it just speaks to, as we said, he's been racing since he was 5 years old, and it's just the opportunities that they have to do this now at an earlier age and hone their skills.
And again, you just, with each level that you move up, you just become a little bit more acclimated. Some things just in terms of really good battle here, by the way, that we're taking a look at. That is a 3-wide battle, as a matter of fact. It's the battle for 24th, but that's Racer Kashima from Japan. He is one of just 2 from outside the United States running in this race today. Ortiz from Puerto Rico, I realize, obviously a United States territory, but we talked about Kashima yesterday. That's him in the 55 machine, and he is right now, Kashima, I got a little bit confused there. Kashima was in the 7 machine. He gave up position there to Ted Saley. That Saley who had an incident yesterday, but that's been a pretty good battle on the racetrack, but it's the battle right now for 24.
Yeah, Nigel Faulkner is involved in that too, and that's him in that kind of aquamarine and black and white car. You see that threesome continue to slug it out now. They've gained a little separation from those running behind them for sure. Really wide swing by Ted Saley now. He's all over the 7 and trying to keep pace as 82. Nigel Faulkner. Boy, look, he about ran out of room there, Jake. He took the runoff area and then some as they go nose to tail now down the straightaway before they start that uphill climb. By the way, 18 minutes remaining in race number 2 of this weekend.
You know, let's go over the top 10 again, because in particular, pretty big gap. There's a notable one from that front four and then everybody else. Brian Ortiz is your leader. Running in second is Celine Roland. Then Robert Stout runs in third. Fourth to Nico Rager. Todd Lamb is in fifth. Luke Oxner, the sixth-place machine. The seventh-place car, that of John Dean the second. Kyle Kimball runs in eighth. Joey Bickers is the ninth-place running machine. Brian Henderson in 10th.
And the teenager, Robert Nochner, is 11th. As Daniel Sparks is 12th. We expected him to move up a little bit. Alex Bashara is 13th. 14th is Jensen. Ashton Harrison is 15th. Koskinen is 16th. Hall is 17th. Brooks Leal is 18th. 19th, Austin Allison. And 20th is Joe Da Silva.
Really good battle for the lead here. Roland looked like he was going to try to get in on Ortiz, but Ortiz was able to hold him off. But again, boy, that guy has been so impressive, Celine Roland, as you watch him there trying to work his way and reel in Brian Ortiz, but that's not going to be an easy pass to make. Ortiz certainly aware of each and every place to put the car on the racetrack, gets himself a little bit of breathing room now as they work their way down one of those elevation changes, call it a car length and a half lead, as you can see, but nearly a half a second was shaved off on the last time by, the last lap passed for Celine Roland in terms of trying to cut into that lead of Brian Ortiz.
And I think Stout, who runs behind them in third, understands the level of aggressiveness between those two young guns. And he is the interested spectator, I think, Jake. And I think maybe if they start leaning on one another a little bit, he's going to be the guy that sees the door opened up, and he may be able to steal the win late in this race.
Interesting, Mark. You kind of wonder, don't you, when you get down towards the nitty-gritty, where's the best position to be? You know, do you want to be up front? Do you want to be right there in second? Or, as you talked about, do you maybe want to be in that third spot, figure out where the two leaders are going to go, let them slug it out, and then take a different line to try to work your way around? I
mean, Stout is no slouch. Pirelli World Challenge 2010 TC champion, but World Challenge, Lucas Short Course Off-Road Pro Buggy, Rolex GT in 2011, King of the Wing Sprint cars, of course, in 2015 and 2016. And he thrives on close quarter momentum racing. He calls it awesome and loves what Mazda is giving back to motorsports as a whole. He calls his best moment winning at Long Beach in 2010. His favorite track is Barber Motorsports Park. But right now, Robert Stout is lying in wait as the front two go nose to tail across the start-finish line.
Roland going to try to take a peek to the inside. Looks like he's going to make that move and does so with relative ease around Brian Ortiz. But now the question, is he going to get it hung out too far and let Ortiz back in? No, he's not. Nice move there for Celine Roland. He now takes the lead, put Ortiz to second, third place in Robert Stout.
Ortiz is not done. He's tucked right in behind him now as they crest the hill, and he'll work on him, stay right in the tire track, so much so that we're not able to see Ortiz come into our view until the very last moment. Stout is trying to keep pace, but he's starting to fade a little bit. You see Roland gets to the turn first, and I just think it appears as though, Jake, right now, he just has a little more grip than Ortiz does.
Got to wonder if maybe Ortiz early in the race, you know, did the movement around, did he start to wear off those BF Goodriches just a little bit more? Did Roland have a little bit saved up? We'll see, because Roland now getting himself a little bit more comfort over Ortiz. That's not to say he's comfortable by any stretch of the imagination, but boy, I'll tell you, if there's one car that you would think actually, Mark, had the most activity to go through, had the most tire wear at this point, it would be Roland, because you're starting at the back of the field. Now you've worked your way all the way up to the front.
You know, it's interesting, Jake, to watch these drivers on some of the courses that we get to see with the Horizon IndyCar Series. And, you know, we addressed this a little bit when we were at St. Petersburg. All the racetracks offer varying degrees of curbing in terms of what can and can't be used and where you can and can't go. There's no question these drivers figure out exactly where the limit is in terms of the curbing and the type that they can use to their advantage.
And the other thing, too, when you look at turn number one, you can make a pass to the inside, but when you do so, you have to know that all of a sudden that car that you just got around is going to be able to sweep it out to the outside, or you're going to be able to hold them off when they come back in and have a little bit of run off of that curbing. Right now, Ortiz, you see Stout, he goes all the way down there and then comes in. He's running in the third position, trying to make up track space and reel in Ortiz. Ortiz running in second, and then it is Roland just in front of him. Roland cuts down a little bit, kind of maneuvering all areas of the racetrack, really making the air difficult for Ortiz.
I think Ortiz is trying to force the driver in front of him, or Roland, into a quote-unquote rookie mistake, because he's tucked right in behind him, and Stout is keeping pace. Well, what's it like to be a dad and watch all of this unfold as we see a couple of offs? Ryan Marine will keep our eye on what's going on the racetrack, and you have someone, a special guest on pit road.
Hello. Hi. That's right. I have the father, that proud father, watching.
Celine. My heart's about to come out of my gut.
Yes. He's very excited down here. How proud are you of your son and what he's done?
I couldn't stand it. Very, very proud of him. It's incredible all the way from the back to the lead. It's incredible. The tires, those tires are amazing. I mean, oh my God. Yeah, very proud of him.
And he worked very hard to get here.
Yes, he did. We done basically everything ourselves. We worked on our cars. If it wouldn't have been for Mazda, we could not be here.
Well, we'll let you get back to watching, and you're doing a great job so far.
Thank you.
That's good stuff. And, I've talked to a couple of drivers over the years, Jake, who watched their son race. And, by the way, 76 of Ryan Hall was the car that you saw stuck in the gravel, had contact with another car. Couldn't get a quick ID on that one. And there's a good look at the 76
Matt
machine.
Koskinen was who he made contact with, and that ended up, unfortunately, you end up in that kitty litter. And then you're just kind of waiting and saying, can somebody come over here and pull me out? And you see he's trying to get that car out, but he's going to need a tow, I think, to get out of there. You see it right here, and then there it is. Just simply did not, when he was coming in through, did not see Koskinen on the outside, and you end up with that spin. Hall ends up in the kitty litter.
Yeah, that's. I would imagine there might be a discussion about that back in the paddock after this is over. It ends the day for Ryan Hall. But I talked to the late motorsports broadcaster and Indy 500 co-rookie of the year, the late Larry Rice, several years ago when his son was racing in USAC, and we've talked to Davey Hamilton of the IndyCar series about this, and very, very difficult sometimes for those drivers to watch their sons compete, because they felt like when they were in the cockpit, they had control, and it's a helpless feeling for them to watch their sons compete.
I think a lot of drivers would a third-person experience. You watch, even when you watch yourself on tape racing. Dario Franchitti once told me, he said, man, I watch something now and I think, I can't believe that's what I was doing there. but and so you're watching it and you don't realize that is you. And then probably the same holds true when you're watching one of your children race, and the fact that, man, I can't believe that's what they're doing, not realizing that you yourself had done the exact same. We're under caution here, approaching the final 10 minutes of this race number 2 and this opening weekend for the Circuit of the Americas in terms of this particular weekend of doubleheader racing in the Mazda MX-5 Cup presented by BF Goodrich Tires. Your leader is Celine Roland. Then Brian Ortiz runs second. Robert Stout is third. Nico Rega runs fourth. Todd Lamb in the fifth position. Luke Oxner, John Dean, Joey Bickers, Kyle Kimball, and Robert Noker make out and round out the top 10.
The Orlando, Florida resident, who's your leader, spent 9 years in Spec Miata racing. He's been karting since 2011. He loves the adrenaline and the competition. Obviously, his best racing moment, Jake, was winning that Mazda Road to Indy 24 shootout. I think I'd be happy if that helped secure my racing future, or at least establish it with that $100,000 scholarship. But he wants to thank Six Sideways, obviously, for the opportunity that they're giving him, and he obviously is excited about this opportunity. We visited with his father just a few moments ago on pit road, and always neat, Jake. We've had the opportunity to cover the Mazda Road to Indy in the Verizon IndyCar series in F2000 and Pro Mazda and Indy Lights, and it's been really cool now that we see a lot of the drivers whose careers that we followed from the very beginning work their way up to the big time in the Verizon IndyCar series.
Got a good look once they pulled Ryan Hall of that 76 car out of that sand trap, and unfortunately that Six Sideways racing machine, that right rear tire is in fact sideways, and so he was able to limp it around and get it back out onto pit road, but that is for all intent and purposes going to end his day, it would seem, because we are now entering the final 8.5 minutes of this race. You see the pace car with the hand out, the car just behind him, nearly identical. As a matter of fact, all of these cars are identical in terms of their setup, but that is Celine Roland, who is the leader. Brian Ortiz just behind him, Stout running in third as they wait here. And a lot like what we saw yesterday, Mark, in race number 1, and that was a late caution that led to a late race shootout, if you will, for the win. And we may see that exact same scenario here again.
As we mentioned, next up is a visit to Barber Motorsports Park. Well, they held spring training there, Jake, earlier this month. There were 23 global Mazda MX-5 Cup machines there for a 2-day test. They turned close to 2,800 laps on that 17-turn course. It was particularly important for the rookies. They were given 6 hours of track time over the 2-day period. And they, of course, had to check the compliance of their cars and prepare for the series return, as we mentioned. That's April 20th through the 22nd. Drivers were awfully excited about the opportunity to test at Barber. There are 10 rookies entered in this field, and Jake, the prize for Rookie of the Year is up to $75,000.
Boy, I'll tell you what, that's what this is all about, Mark, is trying to get that scholarship money and allowing yourself to either maintain here in the Mazda MX-5 or work your way through. We saw Patrick Gallagher took that scholarship money from a year ago, working his way into sports car. Just a great commitment from Mazda all the way around in terms of trying to grow, cultivate, give opportunity to these young drivers, like that young driver that we see running up front right now. We talked to his father, Ryan Marine, did on pit road. What a great story. The 2018 Mazda Club Racer Shootout winner, and Celine Roland now trying to do what he was not able to do yesterday, and that is on a late restart. This is almost a carbon copy of what we saw yesterday in the fact that you had Roland was in the lead late, then all of a sudden there was the caution, there was the shootout at the end. Ortiz was able to get around him. This is a learning series. What did he learn yesterday? We might be a couple of minutes from finding out as we approach the final 6 minutes of this race.
Yep, been an interesting race for sure. Maybe not as tight as the confines were yesterday, especially over the last 5 to 10 minutes of the race. But, Jake, as it often does, that caution changes the outcome of it has changed the outcome of a lot of race weekends.
And you've got to hope for a good restart no matter who you are now. As you see, that is Roland. Boy, he is seeing, if objects in mirror are closer than they appear, then he's got to be a little bit concerned here because Ortiz is right on his heels. Boy, he got a little bit loose. Ortiz was not able to take advantage, but right on the heels. Green flag is out. We're back to racing for the final 5 minutes. Ortiz going to try to work to the inside. Brian Ortiz going to try to take back over the lead.
Again, Stout and Rieger are right there. They're the cars running behind them, the 28 and the 01. It looks like Ortiz gets to turn number 1 first. The 87 of Roland washes up high, and Jake, he may lose a couple of spots unless he can get back up through the gearbox.
But see, again, the bottom line is to exactly that point, Mark. You're right. He didn't lose the additional spots, but he wasn't able to get back down to the bottom of the racetrack fast enough. Ortiz was able to hold him off. That is a critical passing area, and it's the same area where Ortiz yesterday saw on the restart that he wasn't able to make a move. He waited until late in the race. Now things have changed a little bit. Will Roland be able to make that move in the final turn? That's what remains to be seen here in this last few minutes.
5 minutes remaining in this race, Jake. Actually, we're under the 5-minute mark now, and nothing has been decided. As a matter of fact, he is laying all over the bumper of that car, Brian Ortiz, as they snake their way around around that left-hander.
Boy, you got to assume that Ortiz is feeling every inch of that now. Ooh, you saw there, great move as Roland went to the inside, but he knew all of a sudden he had to get off the throttle at the last second, or else perhaps he was going to risk letting Stout get past him. He tucked back in. He's going to have to wait another opportunity here to get past Ortiz.
Luke Oxner is another one who's caught up with that pack of cars, and also Todd Lamb is there. A little bit farther behind them, John Dean II and Joey Bickers now trying to get into the act. So now we have about 7 cars that are pretty much nose to tail, but they fan out as they approach the turn.
Nico Rager's going to give up a track position. That's Todd Lamb that you talked about. Put him into the 4th spot. Battle up front, Ortiz with Roland right there, and Robert Stout. If either one of those two has a problem, Stout is right there ready to pounce. The problem right now is for Ortiz. He just gave up the lead once again. This time it's Roland who gets past.
He's going to try to lean on him a little bit, get that spot back by maybe loosening up the rear end of that race car some. Robert Stout is having to drive defensively in that 28 car. The 77 of Oxner is right there, along with Todd Lamb. Again, about 6 or 7 cars playing in that front lead pack.
Nice job there with Celine Roland as he worked his way, kind of that high-low combo, if you will, of making sure that he was able to get back to the middle of the racetrack before Ortiz could close any sort of a move. Again, Roland gets just a little bit loose. This is another opportunity where Ortiz might be able to try to swing wide coming off one of the turns or tuck in down below. But it looks like Roland is pretty good coming off those corners.
By the way, did we mention a pre-race penalty moved him to the rear of the field? I mean, that's how fast that race car is today.
And how fast that driver's been in terms of finding his way using every inch of the racetrack. We work our way now in last 2.5 minutes of this race, and it's going to be a long 2.5 minutes for Celine Roland.
Lamb and Rager are right there. Now all of a sudden Robert Stout says, yeah, enough's enough. I want in this. And he shoves Ortiz to the high side. He's going to battle it out for that second spot. Don't know that he's going to be able to grab it just yet. More contact between those two in a heated battle for second, which allows Roland to pull out a little bit.
Yeah, I was going to say that gave Roland a little bit of breathing room, didn't it? Ortiz probably lucky he didn't lose the rear of that race car there, and that allowed Roland to give himself about a third of a second. Right now is the lead, and that seemingly, Mark, was all made up there on that last lap.
Stout, with all of his experience, may have decided, look, if I'm going to make a move for the lead and have a chance, I'm going to have to do it right here, understanding that he still had the ability to settle for a top three. So maybe he's going to settle in now and settle for third place as Ortiz starts to pull away a little bit. But no question that dust-up between those two allowed Celine Roland to pull away.
So does Roland have enough to hold off Ortiz at this point, or is Ortiz still trying to just wait until the last second to make that move? This is one of those opportunities, but Roland, you see this time, does not go as wide as we see Nico Rager doing in the back of the pack. So too, that is the 34 machine that you saw swinging wide. That's Joey Bickers. Roland keeps it in the middle of the racetrack. That prohibits Ortiz from being able to make a move.
Ortiz went very deep into that corner before braking and trying to hold on to the momentum just as long as he could. Now he's going to try to make a side-by-side move as the bottom of the racetrack opens up. Will they make contact going into this corner? They do, in fact. The 87 of Roland is shoved wide. We'll see if Ortiz can maintain the momentum with the crisscross move. They'll stay side-by-side. He'll climb on the binders first, which allows Roland to pull away a little bit.
This might be the battle right here for the win, because Roland, or if Ortiz wanted to make a move, it might have been right there. Excellent job by Roland to hold him off. Is he going to be able to do it now for just one more minute?
And again, Stout is tucked right in behind them saying, have at it, boys, hoping to be the beneficiary of contact in which they both might take one another out.
What an outstanding job here for that rookie in Celine Roland, working his way to the back, working his way from the back up to the front, and now a savvy veteran in these machines, Brian Ortiz, he's got to hold off.
He is flinging that thing around the racetrack with less than a minute to go. Does Brian Ortiz have anything left in an attempt to sweep this weekend? They try to go side by side, but Roland moves over, shoves him to the bottom of the racetrack. They both go very, 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 very wide. Checkered flag is out, and it looks like the rookie is going to go to victory lane here at COTA. What a spirited drive by Roland, penalized in the pre-race, having to move to the rear of the field, charges all the way through and is going to go to victory lane.
And you want to talk about side-by-side finish. That's about as close to one as you're going to get. That six sideways racing machine, Celine Roland, who yesterday you can bet he probably has been thinking about that for nearly 24 hours, just thinking, what exactly can I do over the next 18 hours? Technically, it would have been in that exact same scenario again. What a show put on by those two, the same as yesterday, Ortiz and Roland.
Pretty good weekend in the quest for a championship for Brian Ortiz, though, Jake. He wins and finishes second. Robert Stout with a quality run. He made a stab at it with about 2 minutes to go in an attempt to get up there and battle for position, but he's able to hold on to third place by holding off Todd Lamb. Nico Rager is fifth. Oxner is sixth. Joey Bickers seventh. John Dean the second is eighth. That young kid, how about the 14-year-old Robert Noker, Jake? He finishes ninth today, and Kyle Kimball rounds out the top 10. Sparks, Henderson, Bashara, Keith Jensen, and Ashton Harrison complete the top 15.
Boy, what a weekend of racing here at the Circuit of the Americas. Again, to recap, this is, in fact, the first of just a number of different doubleheaders that we're going to see over the course of the season. 6 doubleheader weekends in the championship all told. All races are scored separately. Rounds 1 and 2 are now complete, and it only took round number 2 before that rookie got his initial win. The 2018 Mazda Club Racer Shootout winner that allowed him to get here up into the Mazda MX-5 Cup, and that is Celine Roland that you watch there in that number 87 machine, bringing it to victory lane for the first time here in his career. 3 former series champions in the field, Mark, so it's not like he didn't have to hold off some guys that know what they're doing.
I'm guessing that it'll be a happy victory podium for him, along with his father, who we talked to a few moments ago. Again, want to remind you that rounds 3 and 4 are scheduled for Barber Motorsports Park. That's April 20th through the 22nd. Race weekend after that will be in June at Road America. They'll also visit Mid-Ohio. They'll travel to Portland Labor Day weekend and then close out the season about 90 minutes from New York City at the Monticello Motor Club on the full course there. I think we should remember that name, Jake. I mean, that was one heck of a drive, especially given the conditions.
Boy, you got a feeling that Ryan Marine's in for a spirited interview here in just a minute?
It started as a wet race, and how about BF Goodrich and what they provided today in terms of these drivers? How about these drivers who probably didn't have a lot of experience in terms of dealing with these wet conditions? And let's face it, they worked with their crew tirelessly in terms of predicted how those cars would handle today, and what a great job all of them did. One incident on track, and it was because of contact, not necessarily because of the conditions. So a good show put on in vastly different conditions from yesterday for sure.
Your winner is Celine Roland. Brian Ortiz finishes second, Robert Stout third. Todd Lamb comes home in fourth. Nico Rager is the 5th place machine. 6th place to Luke Oxner. Joey Bickers in 7th. John Dean the 2nd, finishing 8th. These are the unofficial results. Robert Noker in the 9th position. Kyle Kimball finishes in 10th. Nathaniel Sparks, Brian Henderson, Alex Matura, Keith Jensen, Ashton Harrison, the only female in the field, in 15th. Brooks Leal finishing in 16th. It's Charlie Bellarado in 17th. Austin Allison 18th. Alex Walensky 19th. Ted Saley, who had that issue, was the 20th machine. Nigel Faulkner, Racer Kashima, then John Morrow, Albert Luzaki, Herman Palermo, who we saw get lapped a couple of times early in the race, finishing in the 25th position. And then Matt Kosick and Ryan Hall, Joey Da Silva, Michael Globe, Zach Lee, Eric Coran, and Ari Strauss, the last 2 not taking to the green flag. That is the full field rundown for the 32 machines in this race today.
I'm still looking at that 9th place finisher, that 14-year-old kid. I mean, what a story. What a story that's going to be watching that.
At Driver's Ed, yeah, that's going to be amazing, right?
Robert, no, he's not old enough for Driver's Ed. He's only 14.
Year and a half, right?
I mean, my goodness. Dad, the first one on the scene. Zaylen Roland gets a pat on the back from Dad. As soon as he pops that helmet off, our Ryan Marine is there with that happy young man, and the scholarship winner won the shootout in November. And we might be watching a star being born before our very eyes.
I'll tell you, just the mental fortitude of not getting too down when you knew that you had that problem to start the race and being able to work your way through was so impressive, Mark.
Ryan Marine, let's talk to our winner.
How about it? Celine Roland from the back of the pack to the top of the podium when you were handed that penalty. Did you think you could race your way up to the front and win this thing?
Didn't expect that. Definitely going into the race, I was definitely upset with starting in the back, but people were being a little cautious, and I couldn't be cautious. I had to go forward, and once I started, I saw the front of the pack, and I was like, wow, I'm actually catching them. I caught them even before the double yellow, and I ran everyone down. These BF Goodrich rain tires are amazing. Like, they're great. They stick. It felt like I was on dry tires, but, wow, what a fantastic race. Thank you to Six Sideways, my parents, my family, everyone here. Battery Tender for putting on a great event. Mazda for the amazing Mazda Road to 24 shootout win that I got. That it's allowing me to be here. So it's amazing.
The very end of the race, a similar circumstance to what you faced yesterday. A late race restart, battling with Brian. What was going through your head as you were planning your approach for the final few laps?
Well, I needed a good restart like I did yesterday. Didn't get that. I pretty much got sideways in the last corner trying to get a jump. But, 6 sideways. He got by me, but I stayed in front. I knew I was faster than him on the corners in the rain. So just kind of defended, got a good run out of the last hairpin over there, and just able to defend. He wasn't able to put a fender on me, and wow, it worked out. I still can't believe this.
2 podiums, including a race win in your first weekend in the series. Does that change your expectations for the rest of the year?
Still trying to just get podiums, get the occasional win, just stay consistent, stay on the track. I was kind of it was a top 10 would have been great today after the penalty, but we capitalized for sure.
Congratulations. Go celebrate.
Thank you very much.
Ryan Marine, I want to thank you all for joining us, and we look forward to covering throughout the course of the season this outstanding series here in MX-5 Cup. Wally Levitt is our general manager. Rick Evans is our chief engineer and been on-site engineering. Got assistance from Matt Weiss and Scott Burgett. Pit reporter Ryan Marine. For Jake Query, this is Mark Janes inviting you to join us Friday, April 20th at 1:25 p.m. Eastern for the Battery Tender Global MX-5 Cup race number 1 for Barber Motorsports Park in Birmingham, Alabama.